a cheetah will not really outrun you that fast. Why? Because hormonally, there are hormones of flight and fright, your adrenaline and your noradrenaline, which will kick into action, and you will do feats of impossibility. You will scale walls. I mean, you will outrun a lion. Why? Because dear life is at stake. That means that when we put pressure on ourselves and when we bring pressure upon ourselves, there's no telling what we can do. I've always said this, and I know I can't prove it, but I think I'm right in many ways. I think the people who compete in underwater swimming, I mean, if two of us were to go under the water and they say the competition is for who can stay the longer, or let's say 4 or 5 of us, but let's say 2, which of the 2 people can stay longer under the water, he gets $1 million US. If I went under the water, I will use my opponent as my motivation. I will stay under the water as long as he or she is under the water. And no matter how much I want to come, I will extend my lung capacity. I will hold it, and I will tell myself, just 2 more seconds, I'm sure he'll come up. Just 3 more seconds, I'm sure he'll come up. Just 4 more seconds, I'm sure he or she will come up. And chances are that immediately they come up gasping, maybe 1 or 2 minutes later, I'll come up. And you become the world champion. You are crowned, not because of your own, you had the stamina to do it, but you used somebody's challenge as your motivation to succeed. And that is why for every one of us, if we're going to move from dream to dream realization, from just hoping, anticipating, looking at magazines, watching movies, and dreaming about 7-star hotels and flying business class and all the trappings that seem to go along with people who have achieved in life, then it means that we must put pressure upon ourselves. There is something we all call functional literacy. I'm not too sure what it really means. Probably that you can count 1 to 100, probably that you can identify a few things. But I want to say that if it's possible for people to come into functional literacy and numeracy, then it's possible for them to go further. Somebody said a couple of years ago that a lot of people on the African continent of a particular age and beyond have gone beyond being reached with education. And then he had his statistical information. He said why he did that. And then the era of the mobile phone came, the cell phone. And you and I know that your grandmother, your grandparents, I mean, recently I heard of a 77-year-old woman in a West African nation who has an iPhone and does video calls and all that. And suddenly, with the advent of the cell phone, people in our villages, old women, old men, who never darkened the 4 walls of a classroom, know how to use their phones, know how to add credits, know the Nopal, the Njukal, or whatever those things are called by the networks, because it's possible. And so many a time, the buck stops with me. I can determine how far I want to go. Yes, I cannot determine further than the structure I operate under. Truism may be for me not a truism. I always say to myself, even if the environment is inconducive, create your own environment. Create your own environment. I say it one more time, create your own environment. Obviously, when you work in an institution, an office, a company, a franchise, you have 1 or 2 options. The institution is either personnel-led or it is vision, project, goal, success, financial reward oriented. And so in the global annual planning of that company, they may have a certain segment of their budget for staff empowerment, staff training, reappraisal, learning of new skill sets and all that. But I think their main focus will be how to make the money. And some companies can get very vicious in asking you that has been trained to train somebody to do what you have done, and sometimes they give you a nice package, say goodbye to you. They're paying somebody what you are doing, and they're paying the person less, but for the same results you were producing. Now what do? You can get bitter, you can go to industrial tribunal, you can write in the papers, you can tweet, you can MySpace, you can Facebook, you can Google, you can placard, you can do everything. You may get some result there, but I think you'll be wasting your time. Your worth is your worth. What you can do is look for where that worth is well remunerated, or create an environment where you pay yourself what you are worth. Because as long as an organization has its own structure, it's not going to really be so personally bent on your personal improvement for your vision's sake. So here you are, you really want to do a PhD or a master's, but in the scheme of the organization, they're really not ready for that kind of training. Not because they do not believe in a second or a third postgraduate degree, but I'm sure they are calculating that when you return, obviously your salary should go up, and then they've got to create a system and a structure commensurate with your training. If not, they create a trouble. And once they have started with that, then they have to continue, because once you have given one something, you have to give everybody else. You know, and so you might stay in that organization for years, expecting, feeling upset, feeling bitter that you're not being trained, but you can train yourself. And that's why I said, even if the environment seems not to be conducive to your dreams, you can create your own environment. A lot of the things that we desire for our self-actualization, for our joy, for our success and achievement, I want to humbly suggest that more than 50% is inward. Because the situations, some of the things we complain about are global. The crunch is global. Some of the things we complain about are continental. The energy crisis, fuel prices, oil, power generation. Sometimes we complain about those things. You go to the next country, it's the same thing. The third country, it's the same thing. The fourth country, it's the same thing. So people either spend their lives complaining, or they think, well, there's something called solar power, there's something called a windmill, a generator, biogas. They create from within the resources of their intelligence, create something that solves the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that almost every invention probably came out of a crisis. There was pressure to bear. I mean, it's not going to work like that. It was tedious. I mean, do you remember the days when you had to post a letter and it would take like 2-3 weeks before the letter comes? And now you can do it instantly. It's called email. And from the letter, there's been fax, there's been electronic ways, so many things that it can literally be instant. Sometimes when you look at the future, you wonder what will happen to hard copy newspapers, because everybody can read the news on the internet in real time. Sometimes when you listen to the news, what's being read happened a day ago, 10 hours ago. So people are on the move with their iPhones, their Blackberries, their iPads, their Galaxies, and real time they can know what's happening. And so you might be sitting down and saying that, oh, it always comes late, it always comes at 7 o'clock, it always comes at 5 o'clock, it always comes at 3 o'clock. Sometimes between the time that you're waiting for it and the time that you get it, some economic loss could have happened to your life. And so if the world is moving at such a pace, it means that you and I must catch up. And when you do not catch up, you fall victim of the survival of the fittest scenario. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to say it's a nice, lovely world, but I think it's a fighting environment. And you got to pull up, keep yourself on the cutting edge, keep yourself competitive, keep yourself marketable, and create a niche market for yourself. And as I always say, even if they don't like you, they need you. They need you. They may not like you for who you are, what you stand, what you believe, where you're going to, how you dress, how tall, how short you are, what car you drive, where you live, whatever, but they need you. That particular service that they need, they got to swallow their pride and call you because they need you. Now, if all these things are going to come to pass, then there is a basic foundation that you and I need. There is something that happened about 2 years ago, and I've told this story before. And it's a story that I think it will take a long time